Be advised, ladies and gentlemen, that Mercury has entered retrograde. This is the third one of the year, but this is going to be the most brutal Mercury in retrograde of the three. It's going to go to November 29th. We could barely get the show up and running because of Mercury in retrograde. And even the past couple of days, I could really feel it immediately. Usually involves communication, contracts, computers, cars. People who are hip to it know what I'm talking about. If not, you might think it's woo woo, but good luck for you. Anyway, we're here. We are live, and it is Wednesday. It is this week in showbiz history, and I'm glad you're all here because if not, we'd be having some technical problems. But that being said, every World Series or every post-baseball season, I always go into a slight depression because I have to go through the darkness of winter until the bright spring of spring training springs anew in Camelback, which used to be in Vero Beach. When I used to go with my dad, when they lived in Florida, we would go from West Palm up to Vero Beach every year for fun and take in some spring training games. Then they moved to Camelback, but that's closer to me. That's in Arizona, so I didn't get to go with my dad anymore. But it was easier for me to go this past year. But until then, you have daylight savings time being removed. I like football, but not as much as baseball, and I played them both as a kid and played them both in high school. But there's always this post-baseball depression. It's really sad, but the show must go on, folks. Next week, big show on John Candy. I hope you're all here. It's a crazy story about John Candy. I'm just doing a deep dive on him now. All of these people I thought I knew, but you don't really know until you really get deep into their lives and find out all this stuff about them. I mean, the good and the bad, and the weird. So that'll be next week. This week, we're going to do this, but first we have a sponsor, which is the Biltong. Hold on here. Woo! This is it, my friends. This is the stuff that got me through the World Series. Luckily, I have just this one bag left. I am getting a delivery today. This is the Wagyu flavor, which is not my favorite, but I will rip this apart after the show and eat this bag because it is delicious and not my favorite flavor, but it's still better than the alternative. And I do love this. People say, "What is biltong?" Believe me, I have no idea. All I know is the Anton out of Texas and his family puts his product together, and it's like a gourmet dried beef with obviously flavorings and things of that nature. But I've been saying it's like filet mignon of beef jerky, and I think most people would agree who know biltong that's fairly accurate. He has a vast menu to choose from, and if you use the secret code over there, you get a 10% off discount, which will easily cover your shipping and other stuff. I really have no idea this existed. I mean, Viva turned me on to it, and now and also others who were using it the past couple of years, and now I'm hooked on it, and you could be hooked on it too if you use the secret code and go to biltongusa.com, the Biltong website, which has all kinds of weird stuff on it. Besides this particular flavor, I think you'll get a kick out of it. Try just one bag. If not, don't ever bother again. But hey, how do you like my backdrop today? This is kind of interesting. I got the new clapper up there. I've got some movie books that I dug out of my collection, all kinds of different things I'm finding. But yeah, try this. Mark G, 10% off, Biltong USA. Ask for it by name. Don't delay. Call today. It'll be on the way. Okay. So we got that. Now, let's get into some news of the week before we get into the birthdays, the events, and the deaths of the week. There's been some interesting Hollywood developments this past week, and one of them is an article or a storyline that you see here. Matthew McConaughey and Michael Caine have teamed up with 11 Labs. Now, 11 Labs is the leading or only, maybe there's some smaller ones, but this is the leading AI generated versions company in the country now. McConaughey's actually invested in the company. Michael Caine, who's 92, I don't know what he's going to get out of this, but this follows literally a couple of days after Sean Astin, the new president of the Screen Actors Guild, said that AI is going to be something that they will go to war to prevent regarding actors. And here are two major actors signing on to this company like a day later. Now, granted, this is for voiceovers and audio and things of that nature, books and everything else, but it's a slippery slope. So this is going to be fascinating to watch, is the reason I'm bringing this up. McConaughey's invested in the company, and Michael Caine just wants to live forever, I guess, through AI voiceovers of books and things like that. However, like, what happens if you're not signed up with this agency? Can you still use your own voice and do an audio book of your own memoir? This is going to get really dicey in Hollywood. This is going to pit one side against another because they're paying people and estates to come on board. And the list is kind of interesting because most of them already on the list are like dead celebrities and dead sports stars, including now Michael Caine, Liza Minnelli, Art Garfunkel, Shoeless Joe Jackson. Why do I need to hear the voice of Shoeless Joe Jackson? Judy Garland, John Wayne. These are the estates that have signed up for this, but they control the rights to these individuals. Betty Page, Burt Reynolds. That's a weird one. Richard Fenman, Maya Angelou, Laurence Olivier, Amelia Earhart. I mean, do I need an audio book read by Amelia Earhart? This is a really odd one. Babe Ruth, Mark Twain, Ty Cobb, Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano, Johnny Weissmuller, Tarzan has now signed up with his AI company. Thomas Edison, Jean Harlow, Lana Turner, Mickey Rooney, Montgomery Clift. Here's a weird one. J. Robert Oppenheimer. That's an explosive one. I'll tell you that right now. And Rock Hudson. So this is a story I'm going to keep an eye on because this thing is not going to go away. Now it's audio now, but imagery is next. And of course, we talked about the screenplays a week before with Paul Schrader talking about it and others in the business trying to get these AI scripts. Okay, that being said, Jimmy Olsen, Superman spin-off series, DC Crime and Development with American Vandal creators at DC and HBO Max. There's a Superman spinoff called DC Crime in the works at DC Studios and HBO Max, so it's a big deal. The series is billed as being akin to a true crime docuseries with Jimmy Olsen, of all people, from Superman, hosting season 1, summer blockbuster, blah, 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 blah. Season 1 reportedly will be centered around DC bad guy Gorilla Grodd, who often wrestles the Flash, for you people who are in this universe. As most of you know, Grodd has psychic powers and other skills after his encounter with an alien spaceship, as most of the viewers know. The character was created in 1959. I never heard of it. And even starred in the former DC's Arrowverse. I guess that's like the universe, but maybe it's the Green Arrow. So keep your eyes open for that because it involves James Gunn, who's a big fish, and some others. Okay. Here's a weird one. Eddie Murphy called out the Oscars live on stage in 1988 for not awarding black actors, saying Robin Williams warned him it might not be funny. Why go there? Now, this is interesting because this show seemingly has stepped into the zeitgeist of what's currently going on, which is a new documentary on 70s comedians and 80s comedians literally coming out every week now. So I kind of had this idea in the back of my mind to do this show, but apparently others have too, which is quite common, by the way, in Hollywood. Not that anybody's ripping anybody off, but it's just in the zeitgeist. The new John Candy documentary came out. There's going to be one on Steve Martin. There's ones on a lot of people that we're covering. And apparently now Eddie Murphy has a new documentary coming out. So I can't wait to see that. Eddie Murphy, one of the most super talented of everybody in this universe, who literally went from SNL to movie star overnight, and just a super talented guy. This story here is really weird because he was presenting a Oscar for cinematography, I think, and he just went off on this rant about not enough Oscars for black actors. And then he said he'll probably never get one, which he never did, by the way, because of the rant. But Eddie Murphy is a very interesting character, and we will do a show on Eddie Murphy, and I can't wait. There are some people very close to me who were the writers for Eddie Murphy on SNL and wrote his movies. So I know a lot about Eddie Murphy, maybe too much. So that will be a show. But this story here, there's another article that broke saying he punched Muhammad Ali in the face a bunch of times. So these are all promos for the doc. So I can't wait to see the documentary. Okay. That being said, Guillermo del Toro has a new Netflix movie out called Frankenstein. I'm sure it's visually stunning. I looked at it last night. I didn't watch it. I just kind of clicked on it. But apparently 30 million others have clicked on it in the last 3 days. So Del Toro did, interestingly, The Shape of Water, a movie that he stole from another director who, despite Del Toro's protest, had actually put it on as a show on PBS in the early 1960s. This is the one with the mermaid in the tank, the fish creature in the tank, The Shape of Water. I don't know if you remember this. He feverishly denied having stolen it from this other artist. Yet it was the family of the deceased artist said, we beg to differ, since it was on PBS and we have the actual copy of the film. They quietly settled, the studios, who were trying to get an Oscar at the time for Del Toro, quietly settled behind the scenes to make this go away. But I never, ever forgot that how vociferous Del Toro was in his lying that he would ever steal from another artist. And he was caught red-handed stealing this guy's entire movie and putting it up as his own, 35 years later, hoping that nobody had seen it on PBS. Okay, so that's about Del Toro and Frankenstein, which I'm still going to watch because I'm sure it's visually stunning. I don't know how interesting it is. It's been done before, but apparently this is going to be a big deal for Netflix. Limited theatrical release October 17th, debuted in Netflix November 7th, drew 29.1 million views in just 3 days. Might be worth it. Now, the other one that they came out with, which I'm also going to take a look at, is Catherine Bigelow's new House of Dynamite, which also had 22 million views. Now, Catherine Bigelow, famous director, did The Hurt Locker. She's done war films. And I just want to point out, when they make these, this is a nuclear weapon, loose nuke storyline that only a woman can solve, apparently, with a telephone. But what they do in these things, and I love this, when they show you intelligence offices and intelligence places, they cram in 900 video screens in the back with any cockamamie thing that looks high-tech intelligence, outer spacey stuff. I don't think I've seen more in a screen, in a shot, than what I see in the background of this. Of course, they're all facing in the same direction, which happens to be the camera. But nevertheless, nobody ever catches that. But anyway, they all have to be different sizes too, so they can appear to stack up. There's a whole division of Hollywood that just deals with making these phony screens. But this one really caught my eye because there's so many of them. But again, House of Dynamite, I'm definitely going to take a look at it. And I'll get back to you about that. Let's see here. Perfect name. Okay, so we got the Catherine Bigelow, real director. Could be a real movie. Who knows? Okay, so then there's this story, and I don't know how to say this, but there's a Indian An Indian actors, the 56th International Film Festival of India. And this is from Variety. Okay, the reason I pulled this out is not because I'm interested in the film or anything else, but I'm studying the history of comedy. And one of the themes in the history of comedy is stage names. Now, there are stage names for various reasons. Stage names could be to avoid anti-Semitism, but for the most part, they are to have short names that could fit on a marquee in the 1940s, 1930s, but also to be remembered by people, like Alan Koenigsberg becomes Woody Allen, Mel Kaminsky becomes Mel Brooks. There's so many, it just goes on and on and on. And a lot of it is to easily remember the name. Well, that tradition has gone out the window with the rise of ethnic superiority or something. And this guy's name, which I was trying to point out to someone, the reason you don't do this is it's impossible for me to recommend this person if I saw him and he was the Marlon Brando of India. I couldn't pronounce his name to tell you that he was the Marlon Brando of India, which is why his name should be something shorter or at least pronounceable. Now, I'm sure somebody out there knows this guy's name, but when I saw this on the front page of Variety, I just cracked up. Because A, how does it fit on a marquee in a poster? And B, what the hell is it? So if you guys figure it out, let me know how to pronounce this guy's name. Not that I give a shit, but it just kind of made my point reading all these stories of these long Eastern European ethnic names in the 1940s and 50s, even, going into the 60s and going back to the 1920s, of people changing their names for different reasons, but one of them, shortness, brevity, and to be remembered. So tip of the hat to this Indian Marlon Brando guy. Good luck with that. Becoming a household name. You know what I mean? Okay. That's the news of the week out of Variety and Hollywood Reporter and the sources that I use for these stories. Now, getting into some of the birthdays, we're going to get into one right out of the gate named Dorothy Dandridge. And Dorothy Dandridge was a torch singing, light-skinned black jazz singer who was also an actress and starred in Carmen Jones. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress in Carmen Jones. She was also in Porgy and Bess. An unbelievable singer. Used to sing at the Cotton Club and also the Apollo up in Harlem. She was born in Cleveland. Well, she died kind of mysteriously. Halle Berry played her in the movie, but that was pretty recently, the Halle Berry movie. But in 1965, she was supposed to fly to New York, and she died of an embolism in her foot, lived here in LA, or an overdose of some antidepressant. It was never really resolved. But that was in 1965. Her birthday, she was born in 1922. Her birthday was this past Sunday. So just want to give a tip of the hat to Dorothy Dandridge, who was stunning and an amazing singer. For those who are out there, you could look at the Halle Berry movie, which I did when it came out a number of years ago. It's really good. Okay. Lou Ferrigno. I don't know if people remember the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk. He had some kind of a speech, or has some kind of a speech thing. But he was born in Brooklyn, so it never affected me. I always thought he sounded normal. Born November 9th, 1951. Apparently still cooking. Here he is as the Incredible Hulk. He came as obviously a weightlifter, muscle building guy. But he, made something like Schwarzenegger out of nothing. So happy birthday to the Incredible Hulk, Lou Ferrigno. Look at it. He looks pretty good. Wow. It looks great. God bless you. Good luck, Brooklyn. Okay, here's a weird one. Remember the group Salt and Pepper? Today's Pepper's birthday. Not Salt. Salt is another day. Pepper's from Kingston, Jamaica, from what I recall. Teamed up, born in 1951. Pepper became known because of Salt, and there's Salt and Pepper together. It's only the birthday of Pepper. So, by the way, not spelled pepper, spelled P-E-P-A. So it's Peppa if you're scoring at home. Oh, look at her. She looks great too. These people all look good. Um, Eric Dane. I don't know if you remember Eric Dane, Grey's Anatomy, Euphoria, born in San Francisco. Everyone loves Eric Dane. I don't know if he's straight or he's gay. 1972. He was born this past Sunday on the 9th. I think he's still working. Look at him. Yeah, he's got a lot. It's always in these medical shows. Grey's Anatomy. I think people love Eric Dane. Claude. Oh, there. Look at that. He must be gay. Claude Rains, the British actor. Look at Claude Rains. And Claude Rains, you remember from Casablanca. He was the prefect of France, working with the Nazis or not working with the Nazis. Had the beginning of a wonderful friendship at the end with Bogart. In Casablanca, immortalized British actor, obviously, born in 1889. Which was a great year, apparently, for actors to be born in London. He died in 1967, but one of my favorite roles that he played was the Invisible Man. And I'm thinking, like, does it really help an actor to be the Invisible Man? You could say that I was in the Invisible Man, or I was the Invisible Man, and nobody saw him because he was wrapped in that thing. And when he took off the bandages and the glasses, he was invisible. So obviously it was the voice of Claude Rains, unless it was AI back then. But those are the two that come to mind. Born in London, died in 1967. Fascinatingly great actor, Claude Rains. There's other movies he's done. I just can't recall them offhand. Yeah, there he is from Casablanca. He was fantastic in that movie. Gambling. He shut it down for gambling reasons, don't forget. And he was doing this dance with the Nazis that was so fascinating. Great script, obviously, and many of the actors in Casablanca was shot here in LA on a soundstage, but the actors had escaped the Nazis and demanded and were allowed to play refugees in the movie, essentially playing themselves. These are people who survived the Holocaust by getting out early. And a lot of the film is a precursor to the Holocaust, with people fleeing Germany and ending up in Casablanca, which was like Mexico City in the 1960s. Casablanca was just infiltrated with multiple cultures and spies and everything else. George Fenneman. I don't know if you remember George Fenneman, born in 1919. I don't even know why I remember him, except from watching You Bet Your Life. He was the announcer with Groucho Marx, Say the Secret Word and Win $100. And there he is. He would actually be on the show. He was like a straight man voiceover announcer, and he would be teased by Groucho during the show on You Bet Your Life. Died in 1997. He was born in 1919, November 10th. Oddly, look at that. That's a great photo. Wow. Wow. That's a great photo. Born in Peking, China. I just want to point that out. I don't know what he was doing in Peking, China, what his parents were doing in 1919. Yet that's his place of birth. He died in 1997. Tip of the hat to George Fenneman. There's a guy named Russell Johnson who was born in 1924. Russell Johnson, you may know him as one character in his life, and that's the professor from Gilligan's Island. Russell Johnson, born November 10th, 1924, in Ashley, Pennsylvania. I don't know where Ashley is, but there he is. There's the professor. No Marianne, but there's Gilligan and the skipper. He died in 2014, so it's not that long ago. I'm sure he worked. I got a feeling this guy did dinner theater in Pennsylvania or something. A lot of those people from there end up doing like cruises and dinner theater. Okay. 11/10/1925, Richard Burton, from the movie Cleopatra, Who's Afraid of the Virginia Woolf? Here he is with Cleopatra, who he will marry twice. Richard Burton will be the fifth and sixth husband of Elizabeth Taylor, not the fourth and the sixth. He'll be the fifth and the sixth. He was born in South Wales, by the way, for these people who are wondering where he came from. And he had like a pockmarked kind of face, a total alcoholic. But apparently, the love of Elizabeth Taylor's life since she married him twice. He's a good looking guy back then. But I think he had his face sandblasted all the time. Okay, he's gone. Um, when did he die? If you don't even know when he died. Anyway, 11:10. Look at that. That's from Virginia Woolf. He was a fantastic actor. And Gilbert Gottfried did an incredible impersonation of him for those at home. Ennio Morricone was a composer who did so many films, Cinema Paradiso, The Mission, Hateful Eight, a million, Born in Rome, 1928, on the 10th of November. So many scores. I think he was a composer and a trumpeter. I think he actually played a trumpet. But he did Cinema Paradiso. He won an Oscar. For Cinema Paradiso, interestingly enough, there's a kid in there named Marco Leonardi, which we'll get into a little later. But Morricone was huge level of Elmer Bernstein in terms of scoring big films, which is not so easy. And people take it for granted. But when you don't have a good score, it could drive you insane. Okay. November 10th, 1932, Roy Scheider was born in Orange, New Jersey. Roy Scheider, one of the great guys, one of the great American actors, French Connection, Marathon Man, Paper Lion, and of course, Jaws. He knew that they would need a bigger boat, and he didn't even like being a sheriff. I met Roy Scheider one night when I was producing Mambo Mouth with John Leguizamo, and he was in the audience as a guest, and we hung out all night. One of the greatest, nicest guys in Hollywood. I'm not alone in saying that. Scheider was a doll and a hip guy. He was from Jersey. He just came to see the show, and then we hit it off and went out that night. Had a good time. But one of the great working American actors. Take a look at Marathon Man and see how great he is in there. Of course, the French Connection. I think the Seven Ups also, and obviously Jaws with Richard Dreyfuss. He passed away in 2008. I didn't know that. Okay. Deborah Hill was a producer who I know for one film. She died in 2005, but she was born in 1950, November 10th. I know she did a lot of films, but yes, she is. She was one of the first women producers in the 70s and 80s. Really started to come on strong as a producer. But my favorite one was Escape from New York. That was the one that really put her on the map with Kurt Russell, which many people may be having to look at again due to recent current events. So Escape from New York, Deborah Hill. I guess that's John Carpenter on the right, and Kurt Russell, who could have played Major League Baseball, but can be seen in the Battered Bastards of Baseball, a great documentary about not a semi-pro, it's a pro team, minor league pro team that his father owned and he played on in the Northwest. Great documentary on Netflix if you can find it, with the legendary Kurt Russell. Roland D. Emmerich, who is a German film producer, born in 1955. This guy's an interesting guy. He's still going. He did a movie called 2012. He did one called The Day After Tomorrow. Specializes in science fiction. He's also a producer and a director, which is kind of rare. He came from producing and then moved into the director's seat. Born in Stuttgart, Germany, which is sehr gut. And then anything with Will Smith, you can guarantee yourself is going to be a science fiction hit. So Roland Emmerich, born 11/10/1955, still going, I think. Tip of the hat to him. Matt Craven. I don't know if you guys know this actor. Here he is. You guys know this guy. You've seen him a million times. This looks like a pretty recent photo. And I didn't know he was born in Ontario, Canada, but people know him for Juror and K2, and he's never the leading man, but he's like the sidekick or the scientist, or someone who is not. He never had leading man looks. One day I'll grow up, hopefully not so soon. Yeah, you don't have to grow up now, but we're up to Matt Craven in this. Thank you, Pew Pew. Don't grow up today. Matt Craven, happy birthday, bro. Sinbad. I don't know if you people know who Sinbad is. He was a comedian. His real name, I always thought he was Latino, but apparently David Atkins is his real name, and that doesn't sound so Latino. I'm going to go to my Latin experts to verify if Sinbad, whose birthday was on Monday in 1956, born. I always perceived him to be Latino. I don't know. I mean, I had a show called Latino Laughing Matters at the Village Gate as part of the Toyota Comedy Festival back in 1992. We tried to take it, I was at William Morris as a client. We tried to take it to Showtime as a show. And the agents themselves started fighting and in the same company, because they're all just wolves. And they stole the idea from my agent, another agent, and made Sinbad, this guy, the host of my show on Showtime. So I never really, not that Sinbad had anything to do with it, but nevertheless, apparently I learned a valuable lesson about agents at an agency. They're not together. They're all independent wolves. Take that as a lesson in Hollywood representation, which I didn't know at the time. So yeah, Sinbad, happy birthday. Wasn't your fault, David Atkins. Mackenzie Phillips, 1959. Look at Mackenzie Phillips. Boy, does she have an interesting life. John Phillips and Mamas and the Papa thing going on. One day at a time. Born in Alexandria, Virginia. Written memoirs that'll curl your hair. Lots of issues with Mackenzie Phillips. I don't have time to get into all the issues, but she was a victim of circumstances. Let me put it that way. Now, that being said, there's a guy I really love. Born in 1971, November 10th. His name is Walton Goggins, from Birmingham, Alabama. I love this actor. Just watched him all through the Fabulous Gemstones and loved that. The Hateful Eight, Justified, The Shield. Now he's doing Walmart commercials that are totally insane. If you've seen any of these recent Walmart commercials, Goggins is a mad genius, and he's recently in that show where they're on an island doing weird shit, whatever that thing is on HBO. But the Gemstones is absolutely fantastic, and I think he was in Vice Principals also. Yeah, fantastic actor. Let's see, the birthday today, oddly enough, 1977, of Brittany Murphy. Who should have had a long career, born in Atlanta, died in 2009, born in 1977. Boy, that was a crazy story. I don't know if people followed the career and drug addiction or whatever the F happened with Brittany Murphy. Holy cow. They still haven't figured that out. But she was good. She was a really good actress. That might be her from Drop Dead Gorgeous. 1999, also on Monday this past week, November 10th, Kiernan Shipka. Now, you know her as Sally Draper from Mad Men, born in Chicago. This is a child star who's actually made a career for herself, which is very, very rare. She works all the time now, which is, it's hard to pull off coming out of a series where you're typecast, a major series. The same thing's true for The Sopranos' daughter. But she's made a career out of this childhood fame. Happy birthday to you, Kiernan. Pat O'Brien, 1899, Newt Rockney, Angels with Dirty Faces, born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 11/11/1989. Pat O'Brien, one of the legends of 30s, 40s films. He may have done 100 films for all I know. But I remember Newt Rockney, and especially Angels with Dirty Faces, because it had the Bowery Boys in it, and Jimmy Cagney. Died in 1983. Now, Robert Ryan. Now, you know who this guy is. Dirty Dozen, The Longest Day. Always plays like a military officer, Robert Ryan. Although I think he's in executive action, too. The JFK assassination movie, Robert Ryan might be in there. I'd have to look that up. Born in 1909, 11/11/09. Yeah, he looks like he got a little banged up in this one. Oh, he's in a prize fighting movie. Wow. Died in 1973. One of the great American actors, worked all the time. Just had a presence with that angular face. Look what he looks like. He could play a heavy, or he could play a hero. This guy could go either way. He could be a real nasty son of a bitch, or he could be the hero in a movie, which is kind of rare. Now, that being said, another guy we're going to do a show on was born in 1925, 11/11, named Jonathan Winters, in Dayton, Ohio, one of the great improvisers and also a hero to both Bellucci and Robin Williams. There's an episode, the episode we did, we talked about Bellucci showing up to see Robin Williams on the set so they could both watch Jonathan Winters' work. He We'll get into, I don't want to get into it because we're going to do an episode on him, but he was put into a mental institution on 2 or 3 occasions. Absolutely fascinating guy, manic depressive, brilliant improviser, and the model to people like Robin Williams and Bellucci and anybody else. Yeah, he plays his son, I think, right? Doesn't he play Robin Williams' son from Orc or something? Not his father. I think it's the other way around. He died in 2013. Born in Dayton, Ohio. I've been to Dayton, Ohio, and no offense to Dayton, Ohio, but there are parts of Ohio that really need some help. Let me just put it that way. Dayton might not be one of Columbus. Every time I go to Columbus, Ohio, it looks like it's under construction. Stubby K, 1918. I don't know if anybody knows who Stubby K was. Real name, Bernard Solomon Kotzen. Stubby K was in Guys and Dolls, Lil Abner, Cat Ballou, the movie, stage actor, New York City, worked all the time. You've seen this guy a million times. You don't know who he is. Died in 1997. Mm-hmm. Wow. Stubby K, a great stage name. If he had used his whole long name, he probably never would have worked again as Bernard Solomon Kotzen, to my Indian friend. Oh, yeah, that's a great shot. That's a great shot. That's how I remember Stubby K. Usually wearing some hat, obviously because he's bald. Okay, let's go to the videotape. Now, you know that was a saying by this guy who was born in 1937 in Washington, D.C. Happy birthday to Warner Wolf, ABC Sports. We knew him as WAB. Also, give me a break. Right. Give me a break. You got to have a tagline when you do sports. Warner Wolf has had 2 taglines. Give me a break and let's go to the videotape. I just remember him setting up these plays. A lot of announcers will show you the play when he was doing sports at night on Channel 7 in New York. You know, a lot of announcers will show you the play, but Warner Wolf would set it up beforehand and then say, let's go to the videotape. And then you'd see what he was talking about. Born in 1937 this week in Washington, D.C., one of the great sports announcers of all time, Warner Wolf. Now, this guy, okay, the next guy that we're going to talk about has the greatest face in movies ever stretched out. I don't even know if it's a birth defect. I don't know what's going on. Vincent Schiavelli, of course, from Brooklyn. This dude, Vincent Schiavelli, born in 1948, November 11th. You saw him in Ghost, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Batman Returns, Man on the Moon, the Andy Kaufman movies in there. Amadeus, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He died in 2005. Just one of the craziest looking dudes you've ever seen in movies. And he worked like a mofo. This guy has so many credits, which is a real, it's a real help to someone who looks a little different, that there is a place for you in Hollywood. He could look very debonair too. He played a lot of interesting, and the point was he was a great actor. Forget about what his face looked like. He was a fantastic actor, and he made a huge career having acting chops and looking a little different. Let me put it that way. One of the great character actors of all time, Vincent Schiavelli, out of Brooklyn, New York. Speaking of Italianos, enjoy the amazing Vince. Thank you. Yeah, it's not Vice. I think it's Vince, but We could call him Vice. Vincenzo Palomar out of Pennsylvania, as I like to call him. Stanley Tucci, born in 1960, November 11th. There's a shot of Tucci. Recently saw him in that Vatican movie where he was really good with Ray Fiennes, I think. But he was in Prizzi's Honor, Devil Wears Prada. You may know him from that. Conspiracy, Spotlight. Yeah, I forgot about that. Conclave was the one I was thinking of. A very good movie, Conclave. Obviously, Conspiracy, which was the English remake of the German movie on the Final Solution, but still watchable. Hunger Games is just completely over the top character. I forgot about that one. Also, Devils Wear Prada. Born in Peekskill, New York, a place that I've been through. I have a lot of friends in Peekskill, New York. I think it's a great little town, and had relatives living in Peekskill, a little bit north of New York City. Demi Moore, born in 1962, somehow became Demi Moore at some point, or I don't know if it's Demi or Demi at this point, but that's her in the movie Ghost. She was also in G.I. Jane, Striptease, and there it is. She's in Striptease. She was recently in this weird movie, Substance. Yeah, that was the name of it. That was so weird. So weird. Born in Roswell, New Mexico, the UFO town. Wow, that's a great shot of her. I'm gonna have to save that for myself and examine it a little closer later on. Made a huge career for herself, and turning from almost a pinup girl into a real actress is what I was making out of that. Here's a weird guy. Wolf of Wall Street, Inception, born in LA, 1974, 11/11. Leo DiCaprio, who has the Leo DiCaprio room at my library on the corner here, because he grew up in that library and went to Marshall High School, which is around the corner from me. So they have a room with all the computers in it called the Leo DiCaprio room that he paid for. And his movie posters line the room. It's like the computer room in the Los Feliz library here. Because he grew up here and went to Marshall High School and everything else. But yeah, happy birthday, 1974, Leonardo DiCaprio, who's attached to a lot of weird pictures that are going to be coming out soon. I won't go into his what he's attached to because many of them may not come to fruition. But he is the big fish right now. I don't know who's bigger than Leo DiCaprio in terms of Hollywood actual stardom right now, bankability. He may be number one on the list of highest paid actors today. I'd have to think over who might be more, but that would be hard pressed to come up with another actor at this point. There's a guy born in 1876. I don't even know if we have a photo of this cat. He was born in 1876 on November 12th. And his name is Archibald Moonlight Graham, and he's a weird guy. There he is. Wow, that's incredible. Possibly playing for some Carolina team. He played one game for the New York Giants, the New York Baseball National League Giants. And there's a card of him. Wow, that's fantastic. Wow. He then became a doctor, medical doctor. He played the one game, and that was it. He never got another shot at the bigs, but he's immortalized. He was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which may be the reason for that team, but he's immortalized by Burt Lancaster in the movie Field of Dreams. Interestingly enough, shown here. So he was a real guy, and they used that story to W.P. Kinsella's book, Shula's Joe, is the origin of the Field of Dreams intellectual property, by the way. But yeah, it features very, very prominently in Field of Dreams for people who've seen it. And what a nice turn by Burt Lancaster in that movie. Small part, but there's a reason Burt Lancaster is Burt Lancaster. And you could see him in that or Atlantic City in some of his later work, and you could see why he was so great even later in life. Now, there was a woman named Janet Cole who was born in 1922. You may know her not as Janet Cole, but as Kim Hunter, the unbelievable actress from Planet of the Apes, Streetcar Named Desire, and many, many other films. Kim Hunter was a pinup girl when she first started. She died in 2002, but man, was she! I just remember her from Planet of the Apes. Absolutely stunning blonde, had a large body of work, great actress, and Streetcar was unbelievable. Um, she was born in 1922 on this day today. Kim Hunter. Tip of the hat to Kim Hunter. Yeah. Check out Planet of the Apes. She was one of the humans who was captured. 1929 on this date, a actress named Grace Kelly, who was in Rear Window and worked quite a bit until she was born in Philly, by the way. Grace Kelly, I forgot that. Absolutely stunning. And she meets the Prince of Monaco, marries him, leaves show business, and for the rest of her life becomes the Princess of Monaco. There she is working with Hitchcock. Unbelievable on-camera presence. I'll just put it that way. It's absolutely stunning, and especially in Rear Window and some of these other films. I think that's the Prince of Monaco. She became literally the Princess of Monaco, as bizarrely as that sounds. That's what she was known for, and not even the movie so much. Wow. Yeah, Grace Kelly, great actress, born 1929 on this day in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Wow. Here's another one. Maybe he could give DiCaprio a run for his money. The birthday today, born in 1980, Ryan Gosling. You may know him from Barbie, but there's quite a bit of other films that he's done, including The Notebook. Born in London, Ontario. I did not know that. This day in 1980, Ryan Gosling, one of my favorite actors. And oh my God, not this, not the Lars and the girl or something. Is this what it's called? La La Land was, even though I don't love musicals, he's fantastic in La La Land. Here he is in something or other. I don't know what this one's from, but Gosling's got a huge body of work, and he's a finicky kind of guy. Some of the movies really blow, but when it's on, it's on. So happy birthday to Ryan Gosling. Another one, contemporary, born in 1982 on this day, Anne Hathaway from Les Mis, The Dark Knight Rises, Princess Diaries, Devil Wears Prada. Gay icon. People seem to love her in the gay community. I don't know how that happens, but kind of a fashion model kind of a look that she's always had. And in the right part, she can be riveting. Anne Hathaway has a very interesting look, and I guess the one I really remember the most is The Devil Wears Prada with Stanley Tucci. Now, also one of my favorites today, 1934, born tomorrow, 1934, a guy named Gary Marshall out of the Bronx, New York, had a daughter named Penny Marshall, but he started out as a writer for the Dick Van Dyke Show, like many others did, apparently. And then he became a producer, and I really think he produced The Odd Couple and Happy Days, and then got into directing after that. I mean, he directed Runaway Bride, he directed The Princess Diaries with Anne Hathaway, by the way, and Pretty Woman. Gary Marshall, a real force. We were talking about him with the episode with Robin Williams, and how his young son, came up with the idea of having a guest on the show being from another planet, and that creates Mork by his 10-year-old son, who came up with that line. Had a great Bronx accent also. And then Penny Marshall is all through the Bellucci episode. I didn't really get into her, but Penny Marshall was doing drugs with Bellucci all through that time period. And I mean, acid, cocaine. Penny Marshall, I was just shocked how drug aggressive she was, but apparently pulled out of it, you know. Joe Mantegna, 1947, House of Games. This guy's absolutely fantastic actor. I wish he worked more. He was in Weeds, House of Games, worked with David Mamet a lot. Just a really great presence on screen. I don't know if he's done stage. Is this from Wise Guys, the show? He could do anything. Joe Mantegna is one of the great American unknown actors. Yeah, there he is. Wow. Great look. Fantastic in these Mamet films. I want to say 1969. This friend of mine, not friend of mine, a guy I know, Gerard Butler, who's Scottish. This is one of the, again, Gerard Butler is one of the nicest guys in Hollywood. And not all of them are nice. Let me tell you something, folks. But Jerry Butler is, and he was in Dracula 2000. Olympus has fallen. London has fallen. His career may have fallen. I'm not really sure what happened to Gerard Butler's career, but one of the nicest guys in Hollywood. Let me just put it that way. 1904, this guy was born. Dick Powell, one of the great noir actors. Farewell, My Lovely, Cry Danger, all these different noir things. Born 11/14, 1904. Dick Powell, including 42nd Street, by the way, the musical. And the reason I mentioned 42nd Street, the musical, the filmed version of the musical, is because he really wasn't a hoofer. And they had to bring in, unfortunately, my Uncle Herman, who was a hoofer, who drove a cab for the rest of his life, and the brother of my Uncle Louis, who ran Shelley's Coffee Shop in New York, if you want to see in that episode, a place I used to work. But my Uncle Herman was a Broadway hoofer, and for the film sequences of 42nd Street, the musical, my Uncle Herman Grobert stood in for Dick Powell, oddly enough, and was much taller than Dick Powell. Dick Powell's listed at 5'11", but my uncle told me he was like more like 5'8". And you could see the difference if you watched the transition to the dance sequences. That's my Uncle Herman. Oddly, this is a weird little piece of show business meaningless trivia. But, okay, so Dick Powell was also in an obscure movie called The Tall Target. And The Tall Target, we're going to talk about in Dallas when we go down there, Eric and I, next week, because it is one of the earliest assassination movies of a president, and it involves Abraham Lincoln going to Baltimore and Dick Powell as a police officer from New York trying to uncover and stop a plot to kill Abraham Lincoln, aka the Tall Target. It's one of the earliest political assassination films ever made, and starring Dick Powell. And I just watched it the other day, so it was fresh in my mind. Wow, that was weird. Okay, this woman, 1922, her name was Constance Ockelman. Constance Ockelman later became Veronica Lake and had the most unique hairstyle in American cinema. She was in so many great films, some noir films, also born in Brooklyn, New York, by the way, thank God. Born in 1922. Veronica Lake had this hairdo, and women began to copy it because she was a film goddess. Sullivan's Travels, I Married a Witch. Veronica Lake then did, I want to say like PSA, public service films, asking women to cut their hair during the war because a number of women had hair of her length, and it was getting caught in some of the machinery in the factories making armaments for our boys celebrating Veterans Day yesterday, who were fighting the Nazis overseas. So she made a series of films and cut her hair in those films intentionally so women across the country would cut their hair and not have it caught in machinery while making tanks and bombs and weapons for the United States military. Fascinating little oddball thing, but unbelievable hair, unbelievable look. I think she was very, very tiny. And I was very disappointed to find out she was only, maybe not disappointed, I think she was like 5'1" or something. But of course, she died in 1973. and of course from Brooklyn, New York, like most of them. Okay, here's a weird one. This is November 14th, 1946. Sacheen Littlefeather. And you say, oh, Mark, who is Sacheen Littlefeather? Well, here's her moment in the sun. Sacheen Littlefeather came out and declined to receive an Oscar for Marlon Brando, uh, talking about Native American rights and some other mumbo jumbo. It was a scandal at the time. She was booed at the time. She was heckled at the time. And just recently, I think it was Janet, um, the recent Janet, I forget her last name. She used to work for Oliver Stone. She became president of the Screen Actors Guild, of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts. Janet Yang. She became president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and they gave her a special award to apologize to her for the racism of the Academy members during the Academy Awards. It turns out the entire thing was a lie. After she died in 2022, her family came out and revealed for the first time. She was born in Salinas, California. She was a Mexican American. Her name was Marie Louise Cruz. The whole thing was made up by her, and she milked it her entire life, speaking at rallies, invented this entire Native American backstory, had no connection to reality. The reason we know this is because her family waited until she passed away in 2022 to come out and say she had made up the whole thing. They had separated themselves from her. They had given up trying to correct her, or just felt that they should be private about it. But after she passed away, they came out and said that she made the whole cock and bull story up, Sacheen Littlefeather and the whole crazy thing. Now, Marlon Brando was insane, and we'll get into Marlon Brando. He was on, I was just reading about this the other night. He was on the Joey Bishop show. Joey Bishop, when one of the Rat Pack, had a short-lived talk show on TV, nighttime talk show, 11 o'clock slot, like a Jimmy Kimmel shot. And Marlon Brando takes out a handgun from his coat and puts it up to Joey Bishop's head. And the whole audience just holds their breath. And he says, I could blow your head off right now. And Joey Bishop turns white. And he said, Americans should turn in their guns because they're too easily available. And he goes into this gun control rant. That's how crazy Marlon Brando was. And this whole thing with Sacheen Littlefeather, it was someone he was having sex with. And this whole thing was a fraud. Okay, we got that out of the way. Zhang Yimou. You say, who is Zhang Yimou, Mark? This is one of my favorite directors of Chinese cinema. He directed all these different films. Let Live, Raise the Red Lantern. I was addicted to these films in the 90s and the early 2000s. He worked with an actress named Gong Li, who I fell in love with on the screen, not in real life. I think he married her at one point, but then Gong Li finally came here and did a couple of films with American actors, because she was the Elizabeth Taylor of China. But Zhang Yimou, one of the great unheralded directors in world cinema, born in 1951, I presume in China, but absolutely fantastic director. If you could see any of these films, especially Raise the Red Lantern, just these unbelievable films that will allow you to suspend reality and think that you're really watching China in 1935. So check those out. Gong Li, by the way. I think she ends up in a Bond movie. 11/14/1964, a guy named Patrick Warburton, also known as Putty to Seinfeld fans. Putty had such a great run on Seinfeld, one of the great Seinfeldian characters, born in Paterson, New Jersey in 1964, November 14th. I don't know. Maybe he was the voice on all those different cartoons. I guess that's what's the implication is here. But man, oh man, was he great! He worked in the. I think he worked as a mechanic in a car dealership at the beginning of his run. But what a deadpan, brilliant performance with Elaine, and their whole relationship was insane. Hit the mark on this one. Thanks, Pew Pew. Putty, Patrick Warburton, one of the great comic actors, completely unheralded. But to Seinfeld fans, everyone knows him as Putty, so maybe not that unheralded. 1971, 11/14. There's an actor I mentioned before named Marco Leonardi. Now, Marco, whoa, that's him now. Whoa, look at Marco Leonardi. He was in, as I mentioned, Cinema Paradiso as the kid, young boy actor. He's half Italian, half Australian. Um, Marco Leonardi will be in the movie Like Water for Chocolate, which is a fantastic, I think, Oscar-winning Italian film. And in Cinema Paradiso, another Italian film. Yeah, there's Marco Leonardi. Yeah, that's some great stuff. There's the Cinema Paradiso thing. Now, you say, well, what does that have to do with you? Well, in a movie that I was in with him, I got to shoot him with a police revolver and kill him as an undercover immigration ICE agent on a rooftop in the South Bronx, where it was 5 below zero. We were shooting in January on this film called Manhattan Merengue. And I got to hang out and then kill him, unfortunately. And I thought he had a gun, but it was really his wallet that I saw before I killed him. But I did kill him. And he did die in that movie, Manhattan Merengue, by me as a ICE agent. And apparently to this day, the producers have told me that when I come on the screen in South America in this film, I am booed unmercifully as a villain in this movie, Manhattan Merengue, directed by my late great friend Joseph B. Vasquez out of the South Bronx, which was where we shot this movie. Marco Leonardi will later hook up with Lumi Cavazos, who was a star of Mexican soap operas, who was also the star in this movie. And they will move to Hollywood and literally live around the corner from me here in Hollywood. Great actor, great actor. I don't know what he's doing now. I hope he's working. But Marco Leonardi, really smooth thespian. Yeah, it's a great shot. Good looking guy. So happy birthday to Marco Leonardi. 11/15/1929. This guy was born, and his name was Ed Asner. Now, you may know him as Lou Grant. He was always very angry. He was on Mary Tyler Moore, and then he had the spinoff, I think, Lou Grant. But he's born in Kansas City, Missouri. Died in, I want to say 2001 or something. Is that possible? But I know him best as Guy Bannister in the role in JFK that's immortalized when he's pistol whipping Jack Lemmon. And he has a lot of great lines in there as Guy Bannister, where he just goes Camelot in smithereens, and he turns his drink over in the bar that him and Jack Lemmon are drinking after they announced the assassination of JFK. Fantastic turn by Ed Asner as Guy Bannister, former FBI agent and turned private investigator in New Orleans, which we get into a lot on the other channel. Okay, here's a weird one. November 15th, 1933, Jack Burns of Burns and Schreiber, but he was also Burns and Carlin, as we noticed in the Carlin episode that we did on this channel. He came out of Massachusetts. I think he was born up in there. He also became a producer on Fridays. And Larry Charles told me about him, also one of the interviews here. And then he ends up in Mayberry RFD as like a deputy sheriff or something. Jack Burns is one of the weirdest guys in Hollywood show business because he ends up as a producer on TV. He also ends up in the phony fight scene on Fridays that where Andy Kaufman breaks the fourth wall and that food fight starts up when he comes out on Fridays. And you'll see Andy Kaufman tussling with Jack Burns, who was in on it, along with some of the other two actresses and Michael, what's his name from Seinfeld, Kramer. Jack Burns and then hooks up with Schreiber after the George Carlin thing. Carlin goes solo, but he hooks up with this bushy-haired guy, and they become a huge comedy duo. on Fridays, he becomes a producer and just has cocaine psychosis. He goes completely insane, doing mounds and mounds of coke in his office, sitting in the dark, according to Larry Charles and others who worked on Fridays, completely hooked on cocaine, out of his mind. And I don't know how the show ever got produced, but I guess some other people were able to produce it around him. But what a weird, weird, weird career Jack Burns had. All right, here's somebody you may remember. 1939, November 15th, Live and Let Die, Homicide, Life on the Streets, Yaphet Kotto. See, there's a name you can remember. One of the great black actors of all times, died in 2021. There's Yaphet Kotto. He was in Bond films. He was in Alien here. You see him with Alien with Sigourney Weaver. Born in Harlem, 1939, worked his way up. Just a fantastic character actor. And you've seen him in a lot. Look at that Sun Ra poster back there. That's really interesting. Sun Ra, what is this from? With Stanley Turrentine. That's a weird jazz bill. Tip of the hat. Yeah, there he is. That might be from Homicide, Life on the Streets. He just had these great eyes, great look. He could play a cop. He could play a bad guy. He's in a couple of, I think he was in a couple of Hitchcock films. I forget which one, but I remember seeing him in one of the Hitchcock films where Castro comes to New York. Anyway, a million things that he was in. Yaphet Kotto, one of the great show business names of all time. The Indian guy should take a lesson from him. 1940, 11/15/1940, Sam Waterston. And everyone knows him, obviously, from Law and Order. It's kind of like Yaphet Kotto. But he was also in Heaven's Gate, which was almost bankrupted, I think, and bankrupted a studio. And Capricorn 1, which was a phony moon landing movie. Is that possible? Great American actor, born in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He must have been born inside of Harvard or something. But he lends a lot of that American blue blood wasp gravitas to whatever he's in. Like, look at that face. I mean, he's always like some lawyer or the prosecuting attorney. Just an incredible voice, great look. Always seems to have courtroom presence, in like a DA or something, and he's scary eyebrows. You got to have those eyebrows that are so bushy they're terrifying. Happy birthday, Sam Waterston. Now, another favorite of mine, 1951, 11/15, Beverly D'Angelo for National Lampoon's Vacation. Great actress, great comic actress, great serious actress. Born in Columbus, Ohio, and I just mentioned a couple minutes ago. One of the nicest women in show business. There she is with Chevy Chase, who probably fell down drunk or something and broke his arm. We'll do an episode on Chevy Chase. He's not going to get away with this. But she was so fantastic in National Lampoon Vacations, written by, it was called Vacation 1958, actually Vacation 58 for National Lampoon, an article written by John Hughes. John Hughes was an ad agency copy guy, and he would fly in to New York, and we were on that same street there with all the ad agencies, Madison Avenue around 58. And he would then duck into Lampoon to get his assignments or deliver the copy. And John Hughes wrote some of the most fascinating articles for National Lampoon that people would be shocked to read today. He wrote one, I don't know if this is talking out of school, but he wrote one called My Vagina. And it was about a boy in Ohio, teenage boy who wakes up one morning and his penis is gone and he has a vagina. One of the funniest articles I've ever read. He also followed it up with My Penis, which was another version of the same story. Use your own imagination. But John Hughes becomes obviously Breakfast Club and 16 Candles, and will be featured next week in the John Candy episode for working with John Candy on so many films. They become like best friends, him and John Candy. Similar senses of humor and very, very close friends. So we'll visit him next week. I don't want to get that far into that situation. But Okay, so now we got these birthdays. Let's get into some events that happened this week in showbiz history. I'm going to switch over now because in 1940, November 10th, Walt Disney walks into the FBI headquarters here in Los Angeles and says, I'd like to be an informant for the FBI. And he does. And he will. And he will out many of his own employees for being commies or what he perceives to be commies or pinkos. And he will then be from 1940 into the 50s an undercover operative for the Federal Bureau of Investigation here in Los Angeles, along with Daffy Duck and some of the others, Mickey Mouse and some of the others. We'll get back to him in a second because on this day in history in 1969, Sesame Street, speaking of children's stuff, premieres on PBS. And that was a big day for Sesame Street. But getting back to John Hughes, 11/10/1990, a movie, the highest grossing family comedy in history, Home Alone, which was a John Hughes script, directed by Chris Columbus, starring Macaulay Culkin and of course, Catherine O'Hara, who we'll get into with John Candy next week from Second City, another great Canadian actress. Home Alone premieres today in 1990, this week on Monday. Which I think spun off a couple of them. There's John Hughes. Yeah. I think there was a couple of spin-offs, Home Alone 2 and 3. One of them had they had Joe Pesci in it, and some of them were absolutely hysterical. Macaulay Culkin. Later on, I had dinner once with Macaulay Culkin. He wasn't in great shape at that time. I hope he's doing a lot better than the time I met him. Okay, 11/11/63. On this day, Brian Epstein and the Beatles signed a 3 appearance deal with a really big show, Ed Sullivan. This is this is Epstein, who will later die of a drug overdose with his clients, aka the Beatles, and they will make 3 appearances on the Ed Sullivan Show on Sunday night, which will really launch them into the American zeitgeist. Wow, that's a great photo. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So today in Beatles history, also today, 1994 in history, Interview with a Vampire released based on the Anne Rice novel starring Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. You want to talk about star power? 2 vampires flying around New Orleans. I think they bite Christian Slater near the end of the movie, and Christian Slater bites the dust in this vampire picture, which is the production design on Interview with a Vampire is absolutely fantastic. By the way, Brad Pitt is having some problems. He's just not a good vampire, and Tom Cruise is really trying to teach him how to be a vampire. But it's a problem throughout the movie. But today, yeah, I think it's Anna Paquin, the little girl. I could be wrong, but there's a lot of pale-looking vampires in this movie. Today, 1994, released Interview with a Vampire. Now, okay, this is a weird one. 1910. This is 1910, November 12th. A man jumps into the Hudson River from a burning balloon, and it's considered to be the first movie stunt of all time. Here he is, having survived, jumping into the Hudson River, which is odd, from a burning balloon, is somehow considered by most historians to be the first movie stunt ever recorded. Maybe this is how we got there. The plane takes off. This might have been another one of his stunts. But I don't even know the guy's name. But today in show business history, or this week in show business history, a man jumped into the Hudson River. This guy, Rodman Law, there he is, steeplejacker Rodman Law jumped out of a burning hot air balloon into the Hudson River. Yeah, the Hudson River didn't even kill him. Wow, what a stunt. Also today, 1936, the first ever TV gardening show, In Your Garden, premieres on British television, in 1936 on the BBC. This is where it all started, ladies. In Your Garden on the BBC, November 12th, 1936. A great day in gardening history. Okay, November 12th, 1946. While Disney is working undercover for the FBI, the Song of the South is released by his company, bringing in millions and millions of dollars for Uncle Remus and Broadway and the movie. Wow, look at that. Oh, it was at the Broadway Theater in New York City. I should be more specific. Movie theater. Wow, look at that. Wow. Fantastic. 11/13/1940 while working for the FBI. 1966. That's a great shot. 1966, November 13th. Flip Wilson, the brilliant African-American comedian, appears for the first time on the Ed Sullivan Show. He will have so much success in that first appearance that Ed Sullivan, unlike other comics, brings back Flip Wilson 10 more times. This was not the same route that Woody Allen got, using the phrase orgasmic insurance in one of his comedy routines. He is called to Ed Sullivan's office and cursed out by Ed Sullivan, saying, "You'll never work on the show again." And in fact, he didn't. But Flip Wilson did. And in fact, did it 10 more times, becoming a household name. And also, more importantly, a great show business name to my Indian friend. Here's Flip Wilson. He will later work in drag like Milton Berle and many other comics at the time, even going back in time. But if you want a stage name, that's great. Flip Wilson's fantastic. Today, 1971, Steven Spielberg's first movie, a TV movie called Duel. Here it is. The killer weapon is a 40-ton truck, and Dennis Weaver is trying to avoid this truck the entire movie. One of the great low budget TV movies of all time. Duel, being chased by a 40-ton truck. Somehow Spielberg makes this work. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm gonna have to watch that again. Dennis Weaver, fantastic in this movie. Okay, also the next day, 11/14/1976, one of my favorite movies of all time, written by one of my favorite writers of all time, Patty Chayefsky, who gets a credit in the movie the same size as the director, Sidney Lumet. And that movie is Network, with William Holden, Peter Finch, who gets the Academy Award Best Actor, and of course the legendary Faye Dunaway, showed in the upper right-hand corner, who has the affair with one of the heads of the network, that being William Holden. She becomes, he's the head of the news division, or he's in charge of news. Robert Duvall is in this, shown down below, in one of the great turns of Robert Duvall's career. William Holden, one absolutely total alcoholic, will die at a very young age, slipping on a rug in his own house, hitting his head and bleeding to death without anyone knowing it had even happened. That's the end of William Holden at a very young age. I think 63, if I remember. But Dunaway will go on to even greater success, but she has an affair with Holden. She does this entire news division remake with Sybil the Soothsayer and the revolutionary group that was like the Black Panthers, who get their own bank robbery TV show. And one of the greatest movies ever made. I have a poster for it hanging in my kitchen. That's so much I love Network. I could watch that all. And Sidney Lumet, one of the great, it came out of live TV, one of the great directors. But Patty Chayefsky, who wrote this, it's one of the great political satires of all time. And political satires are the hardest thing to write. God knows I've tried to no avail. You have to avoid contemporary issues so it can have longevity. It's very difficult to do. Okay, also today, oddly enough, November 15th, 1979, a show premieres at night on ABC about the Iranian hostage crisis at the embassy, and that becomes Nightline. That runs for years with Ted Koppel. This is actually, I remember this. It started as a day one, and they kept putting the day count up there on the screen. I forget how many days it went. But that became a show called Nightline with Ted Koppel, putting them both on the map. Very, very strange. 1986. This is the second time SNL will use a time delay, and that's because the host is Sam Kinison. Wow, look at that photo. Wow, look at that. That's a wig, by the way, on that guy on the left there. That is a toupee. Kevin Nealon used to be in my gym. And when you see him with no hair, naked, it's quite startling. And I love Kevin Nealon, don't get me wrong. But when you see him without his toupee, the first time, it's quite shocking. Seeing him naked was not so shocking. This used to be the Health and Racket Club on down in the Village in New York, in Greenwich Village. Fitness, Health, and Racket Club, which we had a softball team, and that's a story for another day. But yeah, the Kinison was the host, and they went into a time delay. The other time they did that was Richard Pryor, who they didn't trust, and rightfully so. Richard Pryor, who's going to get his own episode, was maybe the craziest of the crazies. But this day, SNL, or this coming the 15th, SNL used a time delay for Sam Kinison. Now, also, the 2019, this is a weird one. 2019, the movie Joker became the first film R-rated to earn $1 billion with Joaquin Phoenix. Maybe Joaquin Phoenix is more bankable. Nah, it's got to be DiCaprio. But he made $1 billion for this studio, so somebody must like Joaquin Phoenix. I know I do. And Joaquin Phoenix is kind of like, I want to say, the ultimate actor. He is so empty inside. There is no one home inside the body and mind of Joaquin Phoenix. You literally have to pour, and I've talked to him quite a bit. You literally have to pour a character inside of Joaquin Phoenix to make him into a human. There is, and that's the perfect actor, by the way. I'm not doing that to degrade him. He's one of the greatest actors in American history. And the Joker movie just made me sick. I'm not a fan of the movie, and I literally got sick watching it. I don't know why. I went home and threw up. It was just nauseating to me. But somehow it made $1 billion. So what do I know? And then we were forced to watch Joker 2, the sequel, which they turned into a musical. So I don't know if I've yet to see that one. Okay, so now we're going to move into another phase of This Week in Show Business of people who have left us. Not that many this week, but there are some prominent ones who have gone to the show business store in the sky. And one of the first ones is an obscure one named Billy Curtis. Now, Billy Curtis died, I want to say this past Sunday in 1988. Billy Curtis was a 4'2" little actor who starred in the movie Terror of Tiny Town. There he is. You may know him from the Terror of Tiny Town. He lived to the age of 79. Now, take it from me. I mean, I hung out with Mini-Me, who didn't last that long. Mini-Me was not a little person. Mini-Me had another medical situation where he was a tiny, tiny person. I think Billy Curtis was 4'2". So that would be a midget or a dwarf. Who knows what they're supposed to call it right now? But there was a difference between Mini-Me and midgets. Mini-Me was much smaller than the average height of a dwarf or a midget. And Mini-Me was a great guy. But I didn't know Billy Curtis, but he died in 1988. The Terror of Tiny Town is a film. Yeah, look, there. Wow, it must be like Fistful of Dollars or something. One of those Sergio Leone ones. I got to ask my friend who produced these films if he remembers Billy Curtis. Yeah, so anyway, 1988, Billy Curtis on this day has gone on to Tiny Town Heaven up there in the sky, where I guess the dwarves are separate from regular people. 11/9/2003, Ed Norton. And I don't mean Ed Norton, I mean Art Carney. Art Carney from The Honeymooners, one of the greatest comedy actors of all time. Ed Norton, who had to work, alongside of Jackie Gleason. Jackie Gleason being the model for so many people, including John Candy. We're going to get into that next week. Gleason was a model for a lot of these guys, these bigger actors, bigger comics. Norton died at the age of 85. He also did film. He was in Harry and Tonto, if I remember correctly. One of the most, I think he plays a guy who works in the New York City sewers in The Honeymooners. Yeah, and he has that hat. You got to have that hat. I'm working on that hat. I got to get the Ed Norton hat. But wow, what an incredible duo, comedy legend, Ed Norton, aka Art Carney. Now, there's a guy who passed away in 1992 at the age of 71 named Chuck Connors. And I used to watch Chuck Connors. He was in a show called Branded, but more importantly, he was in The Rifleman. And they made a toy version of this rifle that I had as a kid. The Rifleman, he would just fling that thing, and he'd be able to do all kinds of tricks with the rifle. And it was one of those Western shows that was on all the time when I was growing up. And he was also in Branded, a guy, I think they took away his rank in the military. And the photo on the right, I don't know about the Celtics so much, but he was a third baseman for the Los Angeles Dodgers and a great home run hitter. Chuck Connors gave up his baseball career for the Dodgers. There's a photo of him. I guess he must have played for the Boston Celtics. One of the craziest careers of all time. TV star, baseball star, basketball star. Tell me where that has ever happened before. And apparently a guy who single-handedly defeated the Nazis. Wow. Yeah, Chuck Connors played here in Los Angeles. I think he played at the football stadium when the Dodgers were playing there. I don't remember the Celtic thing, but I did read that once. Big, tall guy, passed away in 1992 at the age of 71. Now, this one we talked about a couple of weeks ago, 2006, November 10th, Jack Palance, City Slickers, Batman, Shane. He was in a bunch of different films, died at the age of 87. Oh, there he is. There he is from City Slickers. Now, his real name is Vladimir Polonyuk. Vladimir Polonyuk. He had the presence of mind to change it to Jack Palance. And it was very effective because he got an Oscar from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences for City Slickers. So tip of the hat, 87, to Jack Palance, who passed away in 2006. I think of natural causes. I'm not really sure. There's no real mention of how he died. Unlike the next guy who I really worshipped. This guy, 2016, he died at the age of 87 from leukemia, but it's Robert Vaughn. Now, Robert Vaughn, with that gun, I had a toy version of this gun too. This was from the man from Uncle, United Network Command. Uncle stood for, in case you don't know, which I find hard to believe that nobody would know this. Uncle stood for United Network Command for Law and Enforcement. And they would go into him and Ilya Kuryakin, a Russian actor who was his sidekick, would go into a tailor shop next to the United Nations, into a dressing room, and they'd pull the hook on the wall, and it would open the door into Uncle Command Headquarters, which was led by Leo G. Carroll, who you may know from Topper, from those movies involving ghosts. But Edward G. Carroll would send them out on these missions, Robert Vaughn being the lead participant in this, against the Russians around New York and sometimes overseas. And they would have to solve and deal with these spy things for the United Network Command for Law and Enforcement. Now, their arch nemesis was Spectre, which I don't recall what that really, an acronym spelled out, but Spectre was who Uncle was up against. And they had a briefcase when I was a kid, which was maybe some people remember this. They had a Man from Uncle secret briefcase. that had the gun in it. It shot torpedoes out of the side. It had so many tricks in this briefcase. It was one of the greatest things I had as a kid. I loved Robert Vaughn. He will later be involved in the RFK Sr. assassination. He was very close to RFK Sr. and was one of the actors prominent in trying to reopen the assassination of RFK Sr. here in Los Angeles. He was very active in RFK's circle, and he did have some success in doing that. We'll get into that in another story, some other place. But he was also in Bullitt. I don't know if people remember him with Steve McQueen in Bullitt, where he did a nice turn there as a DA or something, if I remember correctly. 2016 leukemia. Oh, that's what I was getting to. William Holden, 1981, died at the age of 63. Holy crap. November 12th, 1981. Oh my God, look at that. Whoa, look at that. William Holden. He was in Sabrina, Sunset Boulevard, one of the Bridge on the River Kwai. Total alcoholic, slipped and died, drunk out of his mind, banged his head, bled to death in his own mansion at the age of 63. Great actor, totally lost his shit at the end, was a complete nutbag. And in fact, there was something I read about him trying to talk Bellucci into staying away from the press. And Bellucci was he couldn't even talk to the guy. It was some career advice he was giving him about staying away from the press. Okay, 1954, Lionel Barrymore could be related to Drew Barrymore, and in fact, he is. It's a Wonderful Life, Dr. Kildare, Key Largo, dies at the age of 76. The Barrymore family, of course, legendary in show business. All the different Barrymores together led to Drew Barrymore, where I think the lineage will come to an end. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Drew Barrymore seems to go both ways. We don't know what's going to happen there. 1958, The Mark of Zorro, Tyrone Power, one of the great actors, dies at the age of 44 from a massive coronary heart attack. His head and chest explodes, and he dies of a massive heart attack. I don't know if we got any photos of Tyrone Power as Zorro. But that's how he made his bones, with The Mark of Zorro. I didn't know he died so young, 44. That's kind of crazy. Not as crazy as John Candy's father, who dies of a heart attack at 35, which we'll get into next week, which is a big portion of the story. Sally Kirkland. There's The Mark of Zorro. Okay, that's the one I was looking for, that Tyrone Power one. Look at that. I'd like to get an outfit like that. You know, you don't need the mask, but even without the hat, let's say you get rid of the hat and the mask, it's still a great outfit to wear. You could keep the hat, I guess. Okay, no mask. I don't need the scarf, but the pants and the boots and the shirt, the gloves. I mean, I could wear that tomorrow night in Hollywood. They'd all be impressed. Tip of the hat to Tyrone Power, passed away in 1958 this week. Sally Kirkland, I wanted to get into because it just happened November 11th. It just happened yesterday. I don't know if people heard about this. Sally Kirkland, born in 1941 on Halloween Day. We may have covered her. Really, her name was Sarah Finney, spelled with a PH as opposed. There she is. What a quirky actress from The Sting. You may know her from Bruce Almighty, JFK. I was just talking about her yesterday. She plays Rose Cherami at the opening of JFK, who gets thrown out of a car and ends up in a hospital predicting that JFK is going to be assassinated. That's how the whole movie opens, with Sally Kirkland, for Christ's sakes. Look at her. That's at the end. Apparently, Hollywood really did a job on her. This is at the, they took away her medical insurance, of course, the Actors Guild, because she wasn't working enough. So she started to get dementia, lived out in Palm Springs. They immediately removed her medical insurance because it's such a classy organization. So some friends of hers had to create a GoFundMe page to raise money in the last 2 years, 3 years of her life, because the Screen Actors Guild has a rule: if you can't work, you can't have medical insurance. So she couldn't work because she had dementia. So she was out in the desert dying, and eventually did die yesterday from these dementia-related situations. But they did create a GoFundMe for her to try to get her some medical assistance this past year of her life. The past 3 or 4 years, apparently a living hell. When Hollywood turns their back on you, they turn their back on you. Now, Sally Kirkland worked in a lot of films. This was not some obscure actress. She didn't deserve to go out like that. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that right now. But she, born in 1941, had quite a run here in show business and a lot of great films, a lot of great appearances. Just a real Hollywood legend of a working actress who would take minor parts and turn it into something. I was a big fan of Sally Kirkland. She was a quirky actress. Oh yeah, there's a good one. Wow, I don't know what that's from, but yeah, that's the Sally Kirkland I remember, the 5th anniversary party for Omni Magazine. Oh, you know why I know that? Because I was at that party at the Limelight in New York, which was a converted church. Wow, that's so weird. Penthouse was the parent magazine to Omni. It's a magazine party, so I was definitely there. And I used to go there all the time for these different. In fact, I had a party there for the launch of my own magazine, MTV Magazine. Maybe Sally Kirkland was at that party, for all I know. Who knows? Maybe I met Sally Kirkland. I don't remember everything. But anyway, so I think that's the week in show business history. The birthdays, the events, the passings of all these different people together make up this week's show. And I hope you got something out of this show, because I certainly did. There's a lot of stuff I wasn't aware of. But if you people have any comments or questions, now would be a good time, or forever hold your peace. People in the chat, people who support the channel, people who follow this. If you have any statements or questions, I'll see if I can answer them at this point. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next event. Let's see if we got anything going here. I'll just take a look. Hey, these people are all the same people every week. What the hell's going on here? John Wayne, Rock Hudson, Mike Schaefer, all these people. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, there's somebody. One day I'll grow up. Okay. Groucho Marx was stuck on a plane. He was hounded by his fan. He told her, I'll do your luggage. Bet your life. Okay, so next week, like I said, we're going to do John Candy, one of the most beloved people in the history of Hollywood and one of the most beloved people in Canadian show business, with Second City and some of the movies that he gets into. Thank you, Diffuse. That's going to be fun. And, it's not so much fun for me to watch all the bad John Candy movies, but we'll explain the good ones and the bad ones next week on this same bad channel, same bad time. Hold on, there's something here I have to get into and show you. This tribal coffee before I forget. This is the coffee grown, packaged, and put out by the Pygmies of Papua New Guinea. Everybody needs a job. You get 10% off with the secret code Mark G. You don't have to go to Papua New Guinea to get it. It can be sent right to your house, right out of Texas. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how the Pygmies do it. I don't even know what Pygmies are, really. Are they like a cross between midgets and mini-me? They are small people. So they need to grow these beans, and they grow it in this mountain volcanic ash. I don't know, zesty fragrance, dry coca notes, high citrus. There is, I want to say something. There is a taste, a minor taste of citrus in this, and I couldn't identify it till I read that label. This is the coffee that I drink every day now. I got this note where it says, "We hope you enjoy our new coffee. The grinds are roasted here in Texas." So somehow they get from Papua New Guinea to Texas by the farmer. Oh, by the farmer from Papua New Guinea. This is a customer of ours, best coffee we have ever had. I agree. I've had a lot of coffees in my life, but this thing here, when you smell this, when you open up this secret, it's got like a secret zipper bag in the back by the here for freshness. When you open this up, this will blow your mind. And I think if you try one cup, I think you'll really dig it. And if you use that particular secret code, Mark G, I think that you will enjoy this coffee. Try it once, see if you like it. If not, go F yourselves. But I seem to like it, and maybe you'll like it. And hold on, let me take a sip just to make sure. Yeah, this is it. It's pretty damn good. Try a bag. I think you'll like it. And if not, we'll be back next week for another exciting edition of What's Up with Lord Buckley. This week in show business week in show business history will be the following week. John Candy, and then after John Candy, I think it's either going to be Chevy Chase or Bill Murray. I'm not really sure, but there's such a long list. I'm just trying to connect them in some sort of logical order because a lot of these overlap. So I think we will go from the John Candy thing into someone related nearby to John Candy. Ratcliffe, you're the man. While running the CIA, William Ratcliffe, his father, allows him to donate memberships to us. Thank you. That's fucking great, bro. Yeah. So anyway, so the situation will be John Candy, and then we'll probably go to either Chase or Murray. I'm not really sure. Eventually, we'll go to Jonathan Winters, since he was an influence on all these guys. But they're all interconnected. It's kind of fun, when I start doing a deep dive on one of them, there's usually mentions of the other people in that deep dive, which leads me to start researching the other people. Every one of these has been an eye opener, to be honest with you. I love doing this, these deep dives. And I think there's something going on in the culture right now because you're beginning to see documentaries coming out about these subjects that I'm covering. Not that they're ripping me off. It's just, it's in the air right now. And I wanted to get into this, and apparently other people also are having fun with this. So tell your friends, pass it on if they want to see if this is their thing. We're not going to just focus on the 70s because we're going to get into Milton Berle and Jackie Mason. We're going to get into Shecky Green and some of these other Vegas guys, and all of them have insane backstories. I'll tell you that right now. Eventually, we're going to do Richard Pryor, Red Fox, just Red Fox running around with a guy breaking into houses, and that guy becomes Malcolm X. These stories are so crazy that I think you'll enjoy them. But until next week, I will be over on the other thing on Friday for Free Form Friday on YouTube, Rumble, and Local. So I'll see you over there then. Thanks.